A Critique of Interventionism by Ludwig von Mises. Chapter 3 Social Liberalism. Part 4 Control or Economic Law. Among the many mistakes of which the socialists of the chair of all varieties tenaciously cling is their faith in limited government interventions in economic life. They are convinced that, except for syndicalism, there are three conceivable possibilities of control over the means of production in a society based on the division of labor. Besides public property and private property, there is a third possibility of private property that is subject to government regulation. The possibility and conceivability of this third system will be discussed in this section on the antithesis of control or economic law. For the socialists of the chair, this question had special political significance. They could maintain their claim of an impartial middle position between the Manchester School and communism only if they favored a social ideal that apparently was equally distant from the ideals of the two competing movements. They rejected as irrelevant for their ideals all criticism leveled at the socialistic ideal. They could do so as long as they ignored the fact that limited interventions in the private property order failed to achieve their objectives, and that the desired elitist objectives can be achieved only when private property exists in name only and a central authority regulates all production. Moeller observes correctly that the younger historical school opposed classical economics for practical reasons. Schmoller did not care to see his road to scientific justification of social policy blocked by the concept of an external economic regularity independent of man. But Moeller is mistaken when he comments on Rist's remark that the classical school did not uphold the general validity of economic laws. He is mistaken when he asserts that it was not the laws of classical economics properly understood that were blocking the way. Indeed, they stood in the way because they revealed that government intervention in the operations of a capitalistic social order is incapable of achieving the desired result, which leaves the alternative either to renounce such intervention or to go the whole way and assume control over the means of production. On this fact all the critique by the historical realistic school missed its mark. It was irrelevant that these economic laws were not natural laws, and that private property was not eternal, but only a historical legal category. The new economics should have replaced the theory of catalactics developed by physiocrats and classical economists with another system that did not demonstrate the futility of government intervention, because it could not do so. It had to reject categorically all theoretical investigations of economic problems. At times it has been said that there are several kinds of economics. This is no more correct than that there are several biologies and several physics. Surely in every science various hypotheses, interpretations and arguments seek to solve concrete problems, but logic is consistent in every science. It is true also of economics. The historical realistic school itself, which for political reasons disagreed with the traditional and modern theories, proves this point by not substituting its own explanations for the rejected doctrines, but by merely denying the possibility of theoretical knowledge. Economic knowledge necessarily leads to liberalism. On the one hand, it demonstrates that there are only two possibilities for the property problem of a society based on the division of labor: private property or public property, in the means of production. The so-called middle road of the regulated property is either illogical because it does not lead to the intended goal and accomplishes nothing but a disruption of the capitalistic production process, or it must lead to a complete socialization of the means of production. On the other hand, it demonstrates what has been perceived clearly only recently, that a society based on public property is not viable because it does not permit monetary calculation and thus rational economic action. Therefore, economic knowledge is blocking the way to socialistic and syndicalistic ideologies that prevail all over the world, and this explains the war that is waged everywhere against economics and economists. Zuidenek-Sudenhorst seeks to give the untenable doctrine of the third possible social order a new garb. We are dealing not only with the institution of property, he informs us, but probably more importantly, also with the totality of legal standards that form a superstructure over any property order and thereby any economic order. We must realize that these legal standards are decisive for the manner of cooperation of the various factors of production, that is, not only capital, land, and labor, but also the different categories of human labor. In short, we are dealing with that which comprises the organization of production. This organization can only serve the objective of placing the momentary control conditions over the various production factors in the service of the whole economy. Only then does it have social character. Of course, these momentary control conditions, that is, the property order, constitute a part of the organization of production, but this does not lead to the conclusion that the organization would have to differ for the individualistic and the collectivistic economy. In fact, whether and how it can differ is the crucial question. Here again, as with all representatives of egotism, is the notion that a legal structure placing private property in the service of the whole economy can achieve the objectives the authority meant to achieve. After all, Zwijndrecht only recently took his position on the problem of control or economic law, which is so characteristic of all socialists of the chair. It is remarkable that all these literary efforts produced nothing new. All the errors that have been refuted 100 times were dished up again. The question is not whether the power of the state can intervene in economic life. No economist would deny today that, for instance, the bombing of a city or a prohibition of exports is possible. Even the free trader does not deny that the import duties are possible. He only maintains that protective tariffs do not have the effects the protectionists ascribe to them. And he who rejects price controls for being unsuitable does not deny that government can impose and supervise them. He merely denies that the controls will lead to the goal which the government meant to attain.